Let's talk about tenant strategy. This is one of my favorite parts. Again, comes from pain. I paid a lot of money. I can tell you something. Paid a lot of money to learn this. I'd bought property for probably 15, 16 years before I learned this. I had to go to a seminar just like this. It cost me a fortune, 3 days. But I tell you, it radicalized and changed everything. I'm going to give it to you for free. Okay, so do you like the fact that I'm giving you some real stuff? Is that good? I just need some feedback, right? We're introducing you to real people, right? Not go out there on your own, right? Good. I'm doing that so that you feel bad if you do nothing with it, okay? I'm giving you my best, so give yourself your best. Amen? All right, tenant strategy. I didn't have the photo. This is Pirate Bob. All right, so this is a fourplex that I bought. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, and Unit 4 is in the back. Pirate Bob, love him. Pirate Bob would not clean his unit. He would not. His place got so bad that he went and moved into a tent in his front yard, right? Took a power cord from there and connected it to his TV because he wanted to be bored in the tent, and left his family and kids in there, right? And he lived in his tent. I'm not kidding. Then, after we evicted him, he broke in and stole the vinyl from the floors in the house, which was awesome because we're going to remove it anyway, so he did the job for us. That was great. And we needed a 30-foot roll-off dumpster to clean his 2-bedroom, 1-bath little place. Huh? My contractor went out there and he does not like bugs. He said he found cockroaches in the lock set. He took the lock set apart and there was cockroaches in there, right? We had bed bugs, we had everything. It's awesome, right? Who wants to deal with Pirate Bob? No! Who wants to deal with Pirate Bob? Come on, why not? Have you not learnt anything? How much do you think I paid for the fourplex? I thought, man, we were in the afternoon. I thought you guys had learned something. Pirate Bob is the equivalent of cat pee. All right? Here is what happens, right? Novice investor gets excited, goes to a conference, doesn't have the experience or knowledge, buys a property, deals with Pirate Bob. I paid $82,500. I bought it from a real estate agent, believe it or not. Just because they're in the business doesn't mean they understand the business. I put, after I evicted Bob and the guy with the 3 dogs that were like this big and the other lady, I put, so it was 15, and about 13. So about, let's call it 45, okay? Right? That's about what I spent on turning it. And I sold it for $169 a year later. I waited a year so that I wouldn't have to pay short term, right? I paid long-term capital tax. Okay? You want to deal with Pirate Bob? Right? If you want a property that looks awesome and is great, fantastic, good for you. $169. When I was done with it, it's great. We put great tenants in there. The place looked spotless. It was wonderful. No more cockroaches, no more bed bugs. But you paid retail. Good? That's the point. So, tenant strategy. Don't get suckered. Number one, don't be afraid, but at the same time, you've got to use wisdom. I doubt you're going to go to another seminar this year that's going to talk to you about the stuff I'm going to tell you now. Most people don't know this. Property managers been in business 20 years don't know this. And when I say this stuff, you think, oh yeah, whatever. They just don't know it. Believe it or not. Number one, screening is key, right? This is really simple, but it's one of the things that most investors screw up. They go, I got to get someone in there. It's been vacant. I'm telling you, it's easy to get people in. It's really hard to get them out, and it costs you a lot of money. Right? Most people skimp on screening, or they think that screening, like what they'll do is they'll go to one of those screening things that they use in, one of those online things. They pay their $40 and they kind of look up some things. We're really anal about screening. We do a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not saying you have to be as anal as us, but we typically don't have problems with our tenants. There's always the bad one, but generally speaking, the problems that we have with tenants are the ones that we've inherited. The ones that we put in, we don't have problems. All right? People say, well, what's the best way? There's lots of best ways. I can't give you one way. Overall, the best predictor is credit score. Now, understand if you're in a bad neighborhood, you can't expect someone to have an 800 credit score. It's not going to happen, right? So bad is relative. But I'm saying if everybody else is applying with 650s and you've got a 500, that's probably a bad risk for that neighborhood, right? The only thing that I will say is, and this depends on how detailed you want to get with your property manager, if you're doing it yourself, understand the reason for the bad score, okay? The ones that I don't mind, that I kind of let go, because one of my pet peeves about America, this is the best country on earth, amen? Best country on earth. The biggest, can I rabbit trail just for 1 second? The biggest disadvantage you have is if you were born in this country. Do you know why? Because you don't know how good you have it. People coming from outside, the reason why I'm here is because I've seen things that so many Americans have not. And that's not a boasting thing, that's just, I'm telling you, this is the best country on earth to do business, the best country on earth to build relationships, to do some really cool stuff. So if you're American, born and bred, you're at a disadvantage because you don't see the opportunity, right? So I encourage you, don't take it for granted. Go and travel and see the rest of the world and how restrictive it is, and you'll love this country. It's the best country on earth. I love it. I love it. Anyway, but credit score, right? Use credit score. The other thing I'll say is, and this is a free tip, but very worth it. If you've got a property manager, you have to have a good relationship with them. I started out looking at deals with a property manager up in Cleveland. I don't have time now, but long story. But here's what happened. I called them up, and I was interviewing them. And this, again, knowing the questions to ask. And this is what really kind of did it for me. There's a lot of laws now around tenant protection, especially during the screening process. So there's things about, racism or sexism or whatever, right? People being denied because of the color of their skin or because of their race or because, they have pets or not, whatever it might be, right? All this stuff. So a lot of property managers, they freak out because of discrimination laws. And some of these groups, they actually set them up. Like they'll send, as an example, they'll send a black tenant, right? And the property manager will say this thing's been rented. And the minute later, they'll send a white tenant and they'll say, yeah, it's available, right? It's racism. Agreed? That's wrong. They should be done for that. That is wrong, okay? But here's what other things they do. They'll come in and they'll send tenants that just don't make sense. I don't care what the law says. I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense. Like I asked this property manager, I said, look, let me give you a scenario. I've got a 4-bedroom house. I've got 2 people apply. I've got a single guy. I've got a family with 2 kids. Who do you rent to? He goes, nah. He said, the first approved applicant. So I said, so if the first approved applicant is a single guy, you rent to him? He said, yes. I said, are you crazy? He's like, no, that's the law. I said, listen, I don't care what the law is. Why would a single guy want a 4-bedroom home? Unless he's going to cook drugs in it or he's going to bring all his deadbeat friends in. I mean, sometimes, sure, there's some weird reason, but generally speaking, it's just not wisdom. They don't care because it's not their property, right? They're going to make money from you, bless you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, but wisdom of years of dealing with this stuff tells you you don't rent. Now, you have to find some other reasons. You got to be smart. You don't just say it's because you're a single guy. But there's a difference between making money and just being a sucker, right? Don't be the sucker. I don't care what the law says. I'm going to be smart about the way I do it. You don't do it in the wrong way, right? Here are some things that are kind of a king's X for me. Well, let's go to pets. Okay, you need to allow pets in your home if you don't want to have pets. Okay? Here is the thing. There's 2 things that I want you to think about. Number 1, what happens if you say no pets? What do you think happens? Here's what they do. They bring them anyway. They just don't tell you about them. And by the time you realize they have pets and you're like, well, yeah, I'm going to kick you out, whatever, who cares? It's going to cost you more than it cost them. That's the first thing, right? Second thing is, those pets are suddenly going to become emotional support animals. They're going to go online, they're going to pay their $60, they're going to get their certificate, and they're going to turn them into emotional support animals. And guess what? Now, 2 things are going to happen. Number 1 is you can't reject them because that's discrimination, right? So that rooster that helps them get through the day, right? Right? Number 1. Number 2, guess what? You can't charge a pet deposit or pet rent because they're not pets. So you know what I do? We love pets. Bring us all your pets. I want to know how many you have, and I want to know what they weigh. Why? Because if you've got a little chihuahua, it might be okay. But if you've got a 70 kilogram, what's that in pounds? I don't know, big dog, right? One of those big ones that you just like, right? I want to know that. I can find another reason to decline them. But if I don't know, and I don't ask, I'm going to get screwed, right? What I've told you in the last 30 seconds is going to save you thousands if you apply it and think about it. Most people don't think about that. They're like, oh, no pets. I started that way. I was like, no pets. And now I've got 3 Rottweilers. Why? Because they didn't have pets. Oh, we got them after we moved. All this stuff. I didn't read it in my lease, blah, 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 whatever. No. You find out how many pets I have. You want all of them. They got 15 canaries. I want to know, right? I will find the reason to decline them down the road. right, through the application process. Or I just won't give them a reason, right? There was a better applicant, more qualified applicant, whatever. Most people don't get this. Your property manager's not going to do this for you. You have to tell them. I want to know. Now be careful, because if you don't trust the property manager, if you can't have that conversation, it becomes really challenging. You understand? It's a huge one. Most people don't know that. And they don't know how to put the problem. They just go, well, we don't allow pets. Or they'll say, well, we're going to allow 2 pets, right? I've seen this. Can you list a maximum of 2 pets? Because we only allow a maximum of 2 pets. Guess what happens? They list 2 of the pets. Typically the cutest, smallest ones. You know? Well, there was only space for 2 pets, so I put my 2 pets. The fact that I had 15, there's no room for them, right? It's just how it is. Don't rent to people with past evictions, okay? Again, my opinion, you can rent them if you want to. Certain criminal background, like sex offenders. We bought a 4-plex once, and all the 3 people, beg your pardon. Lady on the bottom was not. 3 guys, 1, 2, 3, sex offenders. Best tenants, right? Do you know why? They don't want to attract attention, and guess what? They got nowhere to go, because no one else will take them, right? And we didn't go out seeking sex offenders. We found ourselves with them when we bought the building. But my point is, the fact they were sex offenders, we didn't actually have problems with them. But a lot of people are uncomfortable, and it's going to make it difficult, right? And the lady down the bottom was crazy. So I'll tell you about her in a minute. But the other thing that we do that the most people don't do, and again, just hear me on this. The reason I'm telling you this stuff when I say this is what we do, it's not an advertisement for my business, okay? Hear me on that. It's so that you can do it with the people that you work with, so you know how to ask the right questions, okay? We check federal databases as well as county courts. Why? Not everything that's in the county court, as an example, will make it onto certain databases. Like they might have an issue locally that doesn't make it on those databases. Maybe they've had a judgment against them. Maybe they've sued their landlord. Maybe whatever. Oftentimes, those things won't show up in federal databases. So you do your check and everything's good, and then you find out afterwards when you get sued why they moved, okay? Do your diligence. Does it cost time and money? Yeah, but I tell you, it's a lot cheaper to go down to a courthouse and do a physical paper search. Every state is different, some might be digital. In some places, you have to sit there and comb through the files or pay someone to do it. It's a lot cheaper than putting the wrong tenant in when you get a lawsuit, okay? You can be as extreme or as little. We like to be extreme because we've seen what happens when we do little, okay? Good? Don't rent to people who sue their landlords. I don't care what the reason is, just don't do it. People that do it once will do it again, okay? Just don't do it. Good? Every applicant over the age of 18 is screened. Just like they do with pets, they do it with people, okay? Lady will come in, she's nice, she's got a decent credit score, she's got no bad background. We go in there, inspect the property, and there's more beds than people. Guess what that means? Someone else is living there that doesn't belong there. Now, you'll typically get the whole thing of like, oh, they're just visiting, blah, 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 you know. But what I'm saying is if you don't inspect and check, you'll find other people living in the home. More people in the home can mean various things. Sometimes it's a big issue. Sometimes it's just more wear and tear. Something to be aware of. Screen everybody that's over 18 in the house. Sometimes they'll say, well, don't worry about such and such, we've got good income. They're trying to hide something. Not always, but sometimes. Again, ask me how I know. Don't fall victim for the stories. It's always stories. Every tenant will have some sob story that, their disabled grandmother that fought in the war, that was a Nazi survivor, whatever. Man, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. And I'm not saying don't be sympathetic. But just more often than not less often, not like medium, more often than not, there's stories. Ask me how I know. You can find out for yourself, or you can just take my word for it. Just go for it. There's plenty of renters out there. If you have a decent place and it's safe and it's good and it's respectable, you don't have to go dumpster diving, in the world of tenants, right? You can scrape the bottom of a better barrel than that one, okay? Often, I don't have money for this month's deposit, but I'll give you twice next. No. You just set minimums, right? It just helps to weed people out. I'm just telling you, that's the biggest one, especially if you're a Christian, right? You just want to love everyone. You want to be nice to everyone. You want to believe the best of everyone. In the real world, it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. Who's been screwed by a tenant? Okay, a couple of people. Go and talk to these people. Who's the tenants that screwed people? Just kidding. No, but go and talk to these people and you'll see, It's not until, and this is the difference between, even just from experience, right? When you own one rental or 2 rentals, you have one perspective. When you own a bunch, you get to see the full spectrum, and so you end up being more cautious. Here's something else. I've seen a lot of people don't inspect properties. Everyone's different in what you think is reasonable or not. My view is every 3 months is reasonable. Okay? You can stretch out to every 6 months if you've gotten to know a person for a period of time, maybe for a year or two, but I always do every 3 months. Why? Some of it is malicious and some is not. Here's an example of malicious. They're doing something bad like cooking drugs and they don't want you to see it. Here's a red flag for me. I'm going to pay 12 months rent up front. No thanks. Most people go, what do you mean, you idiot? 12 months? That's awesome. Why do they not want me to come out there for 12 months? Right? I've had people offer to pay 12 months up front. I've always said no. Don't be a sucker. Ask me how I know. Same thing. So every 3 months I want to check. I want to see. So that's the malicious side. Sometimes it's not malicious, right? What ends up happening is, and this depends on the situation, but tenants oftentimes will not want to report a maintenance issue. Do you know why? They don't want to be liable for it in case you think that they caused it, number one. And because some owners, and this is just stupid, but they do it, is they go and fix something and they try and recoup the cost of the fix by raising the rent. So they've learned from successive rentals that when they call up for a maintenance issue, their rent goes up next time, basically to cover the cost, which is just dumb, right? You're going to lose that tenant, especially a good tenant. So what ends up happening is they get a roof leak, right? Which ends up being like nothing if you fix it within a week or two or a month. Which then ends up being replacement of all this wood that's rotted and drywall and goodness knows whatever else, right? So what we tell our tenants from the get-go is, man, we want you to call us. If there's an issue, we want you to call us. It's not going to cost you anymore. We're going to fix it within a day or two. We love it when you call us if there's issues. Now, some people overdo that and we've got to kind of pull it back. But you get what I'm saying? I encourage them, right? I encourage them. The way we write our leases and stuff, and we'll talk about that some other time, not today, but encourages them to call us. There's benefits to them working with us. Don't be ignorant. Don't look at just to cut costs everywhere because they actually end up costing you more. Careful with drug-related issues. Here's the thing, right? Well, let me show you this. This is the first rental that I bought. I didn't have a photo of the actual tenant, but he looks very much like Snoop Dogg, so we called him Snoop Dogg. Worked at Wendy's, allegedly a drug dealer. Never missed a rent payment. Not once, ever. Was he ever even late, right? OCD about his toothbrushes, really weird, right? House was not that great, but he had like 7 toothbrushes and he lined them up just so. And I remember once going into the house, I can't remember what happened, and one of the toothbrushes was slightly off, and he literally went to it and went. It was just weird. Now, allegedly, Snoop was a drug dealer. Those red circles are bullet holes where someone came and shut up the house. So neighbor called me and said, your tenant's a drug dealer. I said, well, why do you say that? He said, people come at late hours of the day and night and things go on and whatever. And I said, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. Anyway, it turns out his house was shot up. I think maybe a deal went bad or whatever. Anyway, I paid $16,000 for this house. It was the first house I ever bought in Columbus, in the worst part of town, the place where you take a shotgun to collect rent. But praise God, it worked out for me, right? He paid his rent on time. I made some money on the property, made some money on the rent. It was great, so it worked out for me. I would not recommend anyone buy there. But here's the thing, right? You think, well, why don't you just report it to the police? Here's what you have to understand. Number one, when you report to the police, a couple of things happen. Depends on the jurisdiction. I know what it's like in Colorado. But in Columbus, basically, they can come out, tear the house apart looking for drugs, and not pay you a cent, and your insurance won't cover you. Right? So you go, oh yeah, I'm going to report it. Congratulations. Good luck. I can't fix that situation. I can't kick him out if he's got a lease, right? Because I can't prove that he's got drugs. But in the process of trying to prove it, I'm going to lose that house, basically. I mean, you got a $16,000 house that gets torn up by the police. Good luck, right? So I basically just ended up selling it. I sold it for, I think I put $4,000 into it when I bought it. So I was at 20, I sold it for 24. I didn't make much, I think I made like $2 or $3 grand on it. But I made rent for 2 years. All up, I think my return was maybe 20%. It's not a bad deal. So don't always go like, I'm going to call the police because there's an issue. Understand, that's when you want to be calling like an attorney. Or you want to be calling your realtor, like someone like Mike that knows this stuff, and say, what's the wisdom, right? Of course, be careful because there's a whole thing about, aiding and abetting and whatever, and there's different, right? I'm just saying, don't just be your automatic, I'm going to do this. Go and find out, right? Go and ask for a friend of a friend on Bigger Pockets. Hey, a friend of mine has this issue with this potential drug dealer. What would you do? And people will pipe up and say, just be careful, right? Understand? You guys okay? Yeah. All right. You still good? You having fun? Told you I saved the best stuff till the end. All right. Tenant strategy. This is stuff that nobody knows. Well, very few people know. Who holds the power in a landlord and tenant relationship? Who says landlord? Who says tenant? Yeah, you're right. Okay? You're a sucker if you think the landlord holds the power. Here's the thing. It again depends on where you are. Okay? In a kind of A-class neighborhood, oftentimes the landlord has a bit of power. But as you start to go down that totem pole, it's really the tenant. Because the landlord has everything to lose and the tenant has very little to lose. Right? Let's say that the tenant does something stupid, right, and costs you $2,000. All right, what are your options? Something like 70% of Americans, it says, the statistic, I don't know if it's 70 or 80 or whatever, but it's a high number, says that they couldn't meet a $1,000 unexpected expense if it came up. So most people live in paycheck to paycheck and most people go in debt while doing it, right? So your tenant does something stupid and you evict them and they owe you $2,000. So what do? You go to court and you get a judgment. And guess how much they're going to pay you out of that? All the judgment says is that they owe you money. It doesn't mean you can collect. And you can't collect if they don't have any money, right? And so most of the time, in most cases, the landlord really has no power. And so in that case, you've got to be a bit smarter than the average bear. And that's where most landlords, especially inexperienced ones, make these mistakes, which I'm going to share with you today so you don't make them. Ask me how I know. Do leases stop people moving? No. Okay. I shouldn't have tapped that, right? Okay. Leases, it's a biggest lie. People are like, I want to get you into a 1-year lease, right? Why? Because it gives me security as a landlord. You're going to be there for a while, yeah? If I've lost my job, if my kid's sick, if I've got a job on another side of the country, what do you think I'm going to do? Oh, sorry. Sorry, tragedy. Sorry, massive opportunity. I'm in a lease. Right? Here's what will happen. One day you'll get there because you haven't received your rent, and you'll find they moved out 2 weeks before in the middle of the night. They packed up their stuff. Happens all the time. Of course, decent people won't do that, but it happens all the time. And that's because you've created a situation where, like it or not, you force them to lie to you. Because you've got a lease, there's punitive damages. What happens? If they leave, they're going to break the lease. You're going to charge them, right? So what would they tell you? And if they're smart, they realize that really, at the end of the day, you're not going to chase them for a couple $100 for $1,000. You're just not. You can't. Good luck finding them, right? So what we do, right, is we only do month-to-month leases. We do not do annual leases on any of our properties. In exceptional circumstances, we will. I did not know that. I'd bought property for 16 years before I learned this. If you take one thing away from today, the lower you go down in the neighborhoods, if you're buying a C-class or below, do month-to-month leases. You're not going to know all the details behind it, and I'm not going to share it with you, number one, because I don't have the time. And number two, what I would recommend you do, again, I'm giving you real stuff, there's a guy by the name of David Tilney, Tilney. David is spelt like the regular David, not with a Y or anything weird like that. It's the David, like normal David. People have weird names today. It's like weird spelling. It's like they want to keep the name but have a weird spelling. Anyway, David Tilney is actually a Christian guy. He's about like 75. He owns a bunch of properties in the Springs, and he lives in Florida kind of like half the time. David does this course called Hassle-Free Property Management, and he does it once or twice a year. Typically, it'll be in different parts. I went to the one in Vegas. They did one in California recently. I think they did one in Denver not long ago, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, David's awesome. He does a 3-day course, very similar to this in the sense of like, it's just real good quality stuff. It's no fluff, it's no whatever. And he does the 2 days of hassle-free property management, and then he does a day on master leasing. Not going to get into master leasing today, right? We might touch on it. It's awesome. Master leasing is something you want to look into if you've got no money, okay? It's a good way to make money. So just something to put in your hat and research for later. Bigger Pockets, you'll find lots of people have master leasing on there that you can learn about, okay? But we do month to month. Here's the reason why. If I don't like the tenant, they've moved in a month, 2 months into a 12-month lease. If I don't like the tenant, how do I get rid of them? I have to evict them, right? How can I evict them? They have to break their lease. They have to do something in that lease that is against the lease in order for me to evict them, right? What if they just annoy me? What if I just don't like them? What if they know how to play the game, which is, bless you, which is every month they pay the rent just late enough to not get evicted, but not soon enough that I need that money? What if they're annoying my neighbors, and those neighbors are filing complaints against, and the city's coming and looking at my property, right? Can't get rid of them. But guess what? If I'm on month to month, at the end of the month, sorry, not renewing your lease anymore. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Right? And then we get in front of a judge, and they're like, well, why did you evict this person? What We didn't. Their lease was up. Oh. And then they're like, well, then pay them back the security deposit. Well, guess what? We don't take security deposits. Why don't we take security deposits? 2 reasons. They don't do anything, right? Take a security deposit for $1,000, they trash the house, how far is it going to go? Right? That's the first reason. It's not real security. It's nonsense, right? The second reason I don't like them is they're refundable. So either you're going to have to prove how much of that you've taken if you go through an eviction proceeding, but it's something that you always end up hassling with the tenant. So what we do is, and this is something I learned from David, we modified it slightly for our market, and you might do it for yours, but we do what's called a rent lock. So what a rent lock is, it's basically the same price as a security deposit, but it's not refundable. And what that is that we guarantee to the tenant that for the time that they're going to be in the building with us, David does it annually, we do it for the life of the tenancy, okay? But what it is it's a one-time payment, and what they're buying is assurance that we will not raise the rent more than 10% in any given year, okay? So they're buying a guarantee from us, because sometimes, market goes through the roof and percentages go up. And here's what I tell the tenant. You might, in future, with this lease, someone else might come and might want to buy this property, and they might want to get you out. And oftentimes the way they do it, if they have no other way, what they do? They jack up the rent, and the tenant has to leave. Well, this guarantees they can never raise your rent in 1 year more than 10%. Do you think the tenant likes that? It's good, right? It gives them some surety. They're paying for something, they're getting a service, as opposed to depositing their money with us, which pays them no interest, right? So the tenant gets value from it. I get to keep the money because they've bought a service, right? But here's the thing, and this, look, it's like, they say that America only works if you have moral people. A lot of these things that I'm teaching you only really work if you're a moral landlord. If you're a scumbag, you're going to screw people with this stuff, right? I'm assuming that you're not. That's why you're here, right? But at the same time, right, if you're smart, you have to protect yourself. So I can't get them out because of raising the rent, right? So what's my out? Month to month, right? I just don't renew their lease. So if I ever need to get them out for any reason, I don't renew the lease. I said they're done. So I can still get the benefit of the money, still provide them protection for while they're with me, but if I really need to get them out, I still can. Good? This is the stuff, right? People don't know this stuff. You have to pay to get this information. And it's worked for us, man, so many times. Because you get in front of a judge, hopefully you never get in front of a judge, but if you have to, you don't have a lease, you don't have a security deposit, what do you want? Because that's what they always hit you with, And that's what the dumb landlords go, well, they owe me this much money and they're sitting there spending hours trying to get, well, I went to Home Depot and to patch this door and whatever. Not talking about it. Don't have a security deposit. Don't have a lease. Makes it really easy. Because here's the thing, who likes moving? Moving sucks. Because people are like, well, if you give a month-to-month lease, they're just going to move. Really? Who wants to move? Moving sucks. The only reason they'll move is because of some life issue, which if they're going to do that, guess what? They're going to move anyway, lease or no lease. Or because, they don't like the house or whatever. But people that like the house, if it's a decent price and you look after them, you fix things quickly and you keep the maintenance and it's decent rent, they're going to stay, right? Unless they have to move. But you know what? Our tenants, they don't leave in the middle of the night. You know why? Because we always give them time anyway. We say, hey, if you need to leave, you just let us know. Give us some notice. They don't leave the house vacant so other people break into it because we only find out when the rent hasn't been paid, right? Number one. Number two, oftentimes we can actually strike up a really good deal. Like we might say, hey, thanks very much. You know what? If you can be out on this particular date, like for example, if you can be out on a Wednesday and you leave the place clean and broom swept, I'm going to give you $200. Do you know why I do that? Because oftentimes, if they leave a bunch of trash in the house, it's going to cost me a lot more than $200 to fix it. And again, what do you think the people in the middle of the night are doing? They're not sitting there cleaning the bench tops and trying to make sure everything's good. They're just like taking the stuff that's valuable, right, and then just going. And so now I've got to clean up their junk. It's going to take me 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to lose money and lose time. But if I can have them out, like say Wednesday, I can clean the house to my satisfaction and have it on the market by Saturday to be showing tenants straight away, because most tenants come out on the weekend, right? So is $200 a big deal? Not in the bigger scheme of things, right? And I have amicable. They don't go and punch a hole through every wall or flush cement, as Andrew says, down my toilet, right? That's the difference. There's an art to this stuff. But you need to give the parameters so that you can do the right stuff in the right way and give yourself some space to operate. The minute you have a lease, you're pretty much locked into that lease. Good? Okay, what does an eviction cost? A lot more than the lawyer. This is, again, people don't understand this. I'll talk to a person, they haven't paid me rent, evict them. I'm like, don't evict them. Let's just work it out. No, they want every cent. I'm like, you're not going to get anything. You're going to pay the lawyer $400 or so for an eviction. On top of that, you know what they're going to do? They're going to write it out, because by the time you get the eviction thing, that might take a week to do that. Then you've got to go to court. It might take a week, 2, 3 weeks, depending on where you are. Sometimes it's going to be 2 months. Good luck if you're in California. I don't think they ever evict anyone. But it just takes forever, right? And guess what? During that time, you're losing rent. You're going to pay the lawyer's fees. When you finally evict them, because then you never want to get your court date, then you've got to get your sheriff date. A place like Columbus, right? The sheriff will give you 2 different days when they might come and 2 different time slots. And because of the law, you have to bring, I think it's 2 or 3 able-bodied men to come with you during those times to help carry their stuff to the curb, right? So now I've got to pay 2 or 3 guys, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3, for I don't know how many hours, for 2 days, to sit there and wait until the sheriff comes to evict them. Do you think that's cheaper than me giving them $500 and just telling them to go? So you need to know how to deal with tenants. Most people don't know. Property manager goes, I don't care, just evict them. No, there's better ways to do it that works for you and works for them. And this is the second point, is it's not about who's right, it's about the money, right? Get over it. You can be right. You can have done everything right. I mean, there's so many cases I've done everything right by a tenant, gone out of my way, and they still screwed me. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Most people, they want to go for what's right. What's right is how much money is in your pocket. If you've been dealt wrong, chalk it up. Leave it, let them answer to Jesus. Don't you try and sit there and be the moral arbiter and try and fix everything. It just doesn't work, okay? It just doesn't work. We good? I know this is kind of somber sounding, but you guys should be excited because I'm saving you money right now. What you're not hearing is ching, 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 ching. This is saving you money, okay? This is the crazy lady with the sex offenders. So she was in the bottom unit. What ended up happening was the sex offender above her moved out, and we tried to rent that place. But before we could rent it, we had to turn it, right? We had to fix it. Well, like most, how do I put this politically correct? We had people of southern descent coming to help us with some of our contracting work, okay? I don't know what to call them. Mexicans, El Salvadorians, whatever, right? Legal or not illegal, I don't know. Hispanic, right? I don't know who they were. But you know what this woman would do? She would come out and threaten to call ICE, right? And then, once we turned the unit, she would tell everybody that came to inspect the unit, don't move in because we've got sex offenders in the building. It took us forever, right? But you know why she did it? She did it because her husband was a long-distance truck driver, and he would sleep during the day, right? And oftentimes he'd be tired. And because they were living below, she didn't want anyone there to cause noise to wake him up. It's incredibly selfish, but that was the reason. Plus she was crazy, but that's a separate issue. We kicked her out, she moved in with another tenant down the road, and she'd have barbecues in front of that unit every day just to spite us. Anyway, it's just a bit insane. But what I'm saying is, right, she got to the point where she threatened to burn the fourplex down. And at that point, we gave her $1,000 and she was on her way. Because it would cost me a lot more, right, to deal with that problem. Make sense? Not our fault. We didn't do anything wrong. Cash for keys. Cash for keys is just basically that. It's just saying, you know what, you're an idiot. You don't say this, but you're an idiot. It's cheaper for me to get rid of you by giving you money than by me to have to deal with you. And so oftentimes, we'll just give them cash. If you're the sort of person who freaks out about that, who thinks that that's wrong, this so-and-so owes me so much money, this is not fair, blah, 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 landlording is not for you, okay? It's my litmus test when I meet with clients. So many clients, I've had to shake their hand at the end of the meeting and say, look, thanks very much, but I can't work with you. And they get a bit offended. And I say, look, the reason why is, honestly, it's not good for you. It's good for me, I'll make money, but it's not good for you. And I said, what do you mean? I said, look, if you can't deal with the fact that sometimes people are going to do wrong by you and it's still going to cost you money, but you end up better in the end, you can't do it. That's just reality. It's just reality. It's about the dollars and cents, not how you feel about it. You can tell your wife or your husband how you feel about it. You can go and confess to the priest. I mean, you shouldn't be if you're in this room, but, but you understand? Like, okay. Man, we're at 4 o'clock. Almost. We're at 4. I'm really sorry. I genuinely apologize. I thought we'd be quicker. Let's keep going quickly and see how we go. We good? Yes. All right. Section 8, I'll talk about this quickly. So Section 8 is basically government-assisted housing. I personally don't like Section 8. Some people swear by it, they love it. I don't like it. I don't like it for 2 reasons. Number one, it's fixed income for most people, right? and this is the flat tire thing. If you get a tenant that gets behind on their rent, they have no additional income. They're never going to catch up, right? So you end up in a situation where you're always chasing for late payment, whatever, it gets untenable. And when the government gets involved, there's certain things they won't let you do. And then they make you fix separate things, right? We're in a situation where I did a rehab on a home, and it was a nice rehab. I mean, it wasn't like superstar, but man, for that neighborhood, it was good. And I spent like $13,500. Section 8 guy comes out and says, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, it's additional $1,000. We lost 2 weeks. And then his boss comes out and says, well, Fred didn't pick up those 2 or 3 things, and he fixed these other things. Another $500, another 3 or 4 weeks. And then by the time we got the tenant in, it took like 3 months to get the rent, right? Now, here's the thing. Section 8, sometimes, because they don't have many places to go, many people don't accept the vouchers, you can get a good tenant that'll stay there for 10 years. And that's jackpot. My experience is not being so rosy, and so it depends on you and who you work with. I just find Section 8, the government, difficult to deal with. Oftentimes you get more rent. That's the reason why people do it. And it's so stupid from the government. If they made it easier and better, Section 8 should be cheaper, if you really think about it, because it's like guaranteed rent from the government. Like that's security for me as a landlord. But instead they make it so difficult, like most government programs are stupid, it ends up costing more, and they make it so hard, landlords don't take it. And so then the government ends up paying more because landlords will only take it if they charge above market rent. Like if I rent the place out for $1,000, I'm going to do Section 8 at probably $1,150. Right? Just to cover me for the inconvenience. So I don't like Section 8. Some people will swear by it, whatever. We bought a fourplex. The 8-month-old pregnant lady punched 2 guys, beat them up, put them in hospital because they parked in a parking spot. This is the crap that you deal with. It's just reality, okay? Happens all the time. I know. When I got the phone call, man, I was just like, oh. Anyway, it happens. I would have wanted to meet her. Like, she'd be pretty tough. Here's something that's very important. Be nice, so when you can't be, you won't feel bad about it. Remember the Pooplex? Here's what I did. I didn't tell them this, but when I inspected it, that's the only time I inspected it, and I bought it. The next time I went in, I took out a $100 bill, and basically I felt sorry, even though I knew there was kind of nonsense their story, I felt sorry for them. So I took a $100 bill with me, and when I met them at the front door, and I said, look, I just want you to know, I know you guys have had a tough time. Here's $100, you can hire someone off Craigslist to clean the house, okay? Just to help you, you know. You can clean it yourself and keep the money, or you can hire someone from Craigslist to clean it. Well, when I got in there, they'd already cleaned the house. We went and had a conversation for 20 minutes in that kitchen, and it was spotless, right? That was the only time that house was ever clean. After that, I'd done successfully. So they knew. They were afraid they were going to get evicted, so they cleaned the place, right? But you know what? I still gave them the $100. I didn't have to, right? I was trying to get an outcome. But I wanted to show them, like, how many landlords come and give money to their tenants, right? But you know what? I didn't want there to ever be a situation where if I had to evict, that it's like, well, I felt bad. So like I'd take chocolates for people's kids, I'd bring them toys, I'd do all sorts of things like that. Not because I had to, because number one, it's smart. And number two, when I had to be tough, it's like, you know what, man, I've done everything I can do to help you. I've been kind to you, I've looked after you, I've been responsive, I've fixed things, but we have an agreement, and if you don't meet that agreement, we're done, right? So be nice so that when you can't be, you don't feel bad about it. And especially as a Christian, sometimes it's tough. And when you see kids in these situations or whatever, I'm sorry, it's just, you have to be pretty down the line. I'm not saying there's no room for grace, and if God speaks to you, whatever, I'm good with that, right? Please hear me. But most of the time, we just let the sob stories eat us, right? Treat people with respect, but hold them accountable, right? Respecting people doesn't mean not holding them accountable. Sometimes respecting them means holding them more accountable. Amen? Okay? All right. Let's have a quick break. We're running way behind. Is that okay? I'm sorry. Let's try and make it 5 minutes if that's okay. Keep going? No? Anybody want a break? All right. I'm good to keep going. I'm sorry, it got away from me, but hopefully you guys are still happy with the content. Sorry? Do I look like I need a break? I don't need a break. Asset protection strategies. Okay, typical jargon, I'm not an attorney, blah, 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 whatever, always say. Don't be a target, okay? It's not about ownership, it's about control. Inside liability, outside liability. We're going to cover this stuff. It's really important. Okay, land trusts. I'll just talk about this quickly. Land trusts are basically a legal instrument. You can use it to purchase property. The thing that I really like about, and I'm not going to go into detail with this, Bill Bronchick can help you with this, okay? But what I really like about land trusts is that they're not really registered anywhere. They're kind of this entity that sits off to the side. It's not like an LLC where you have to have someone that's registered as the person. So the way that the optimal way, and this doesn't always work, is to have a land trust, and I'll show you this after, but you have a land trust and then you have an LLC that sits below the land trust, and then you have a family limited partnership. I'm going to draw this for you so you don't have to draw it out. It's cool. And then you have you. Okay? But all you need to know about land trust is it's just a really good way to hide ownership. Okay? So I'm just making you aware of it. You can read about this in your own time. LLCs, everybody knows LLCs. You can couple them with land trust, you can do them without. In Ohio, I actually started out doing land trust and then I stopped. Not because I didn't want to, but because insurers freaked out. Some insurers don't know how to insure if a property is titled in a land trust. So this is just a tip, write it down. You may never need it. But I'm telling you, just hear me out. Oftentimes, land trusts will have some funky names or whatever. Unless the name is perfect on certain policies, they're not going to cover you. It's the stupidest thing. So that's why sometimes if they don't know how to write it or whatever, or they put the before the word or the other way around. So that's just a tip. With land trusts, just be very, very careful because sometimes it doesn't work with insurance. I don't know why, but it's just weird. It's not a common thing. But what I like about it, and what most people like about it, is it provides legal coverage. Corporate veil. Don't commingle funds. What that means is don't go and buy lunch out of your LLC's bank account. Don't have the LLC and your bank account the same thing, right? Make sure that your LLC has its own bank account and your personal funds are here. Don't mix the funds, okay? You can withdraw rent and things like that, but I'm saying don't use your LLC credit card to take your wife to dinner type thing, or pay for repairs from your personal funds. Because what will happen is if you ever end up in court, they'll say, well, there was never really an LLC there anyway. The funds were commingled, so there's no protection, okay? Just be careful with that. So that's just a simple thing. Publicly recorded, but ownership can be obfuscated. I'll get to that in a second. Sole member disregarded, entity pass-through. The good thing about LLCs is you get all the benefit of the asset protection and the liability protection, but the taxes are really simple to do. It just flows down into your tax return, okay? So you don't have to do a really complicated tax return. Make sense? So again, I know you don't understand a lot of this stuff, but these are the things that you just need to understand that benefit you from an LLC. They protect your assets if you get sued, but they make your taxes really simple. Once you go into like an S Corp or a C Corp or whatever, taxes become a little bit more difficult. So for most people, this will be a good way. FLP, this is something I love. Family limited partnership. I'll explain this in a second, why this is important. But they enable outside liability protection. Talk about this in the next slide. Provide legal cover of corporate veil, same as an LLC. Allows you to operate in states where you do not have business or you do not live, okay? And it makes it easier for you if you die. Because your spouse can basically take over your assets. You have to go through all that stuff. Again, Bill will help you with this. But even that, most people don't understand. They're in an LLC. If you die and your spouses take over, it's actually a much more difficult process than if you have an FLP. So I'll show you what it looks like. So how not to get sued? People with money are targeted, okay? If you have a lot of money, you're a good target. You have to either not exist or look poor. And so the way that you do that is you make sure that people don't know what you own. And so this is where you have to understand this structure. And you can do this whether you own real estate or not, or in combination with other things. What will typically happen is a tenant will be watching TV, and 3 in the morning, they'll see one of those ads for a lawyer that says, have you been injured? I got such and such $3 million, The result's not guaranteed, but, And what they do is they basically call to what's one of these boiler rooms for lawyers where they'll ask them a bunch of questions. Like, what happened? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it's fictitious. I tripped today. I won $1 million. Here's what happens. This boiler room, what's the first thing that they do? They ask you where you live. They ask you what happened, but they ask you where you live. And then what they do is they go to the county records and they see who the owner is. And typically, they'll look at who the owner is and see if the owner owns anything else. And if that owner owns a bunch of properties, that becomes a target, right? Most tenants don't have the money to hire a lawyer on retainer and pay him 50 grand to take on a case, right? What ends up happening is these lawyers go, okay, this person's got 10 houses, they're worth about this much, whatever. We'll take the case and we're going to take 60% if we win, you take 40%. It's a good day for them, good day for the tenant, not a good day for you. So you want to look. So what we do with our clients is we don't put their names on anything. Like you'd have no idea what my clients own because their name's not on anything. You know whose name is on all the documentation? Bill Bronchick. So when they look him up, you're going to sue one of the best asset protection lawyers in the country? So one of two things are happening. Either Bill owns it or it's a client of Bill's. So either way, good luck getting that money, right? You're going to go to the next person, right? That's the first thing, okay? Number one. Number two, so that's inside liability, right? So that's basically the tenant comes and brings an action against you because they've tripped over, they've failed, you've done something to wrong them, okay? Most people understand that concept, yeah? LLC, inside liability. Here's a concept most people don't understand, not even lawyers. A lot of lawyers don't understand this concept. Outside liability. You drive out of Caris today, you T-bone someone, and they sue you. Guess what happens when they sue you? Take you to court, they're crippled for the rest of their life, now you owe them $2 million. And they take all of your LLCs, and they sell all the property within those LLCs for whatever they can get for them. They take that money and go, right? Because you owe them money. That's outside liability. It didn't come from within your assets. It came from activities you did outside. You lose everything you've worked for your whole life because you weren't protected. Yeah? Talk about equity stripping in a moment. Let me show you this. This is a sample asset protection structure. It's what I use. It's what my clients use. This is a really good way. It's not the only way. It's just what I like. Okay? It's a state where the property is owned. So wherever you are. This is direct ownership. In other words, the LLC owns the property. The family limited partnership, I like Wyoming's my favorite. Some people use Nevada. I think Wyoming's better. I won't explain why. You can go with it or ask Bill. But I like Wyoming. And the reason where you want to be in states where the only remedy for a creditor is a charging order against your assets. What that means is they can take the money that comes out of your assets, but they can't take the assets and sell them. Okay? It means that if you owe them money under this structure, because see, I don't own these houses, right? The LLCs own the houses. All I have is the FLP, and I control the FLP. That's the control, that's the ownership, that's direct ownership. Make sense? So what happens is, if they say, we're going to sue you for what you own, I don't own anything. I have an FLP and the FLP, but this FLP happens to be in Wyoming, and the sole remedy for a creditor in Wyoming is a charging order. In other states, their remedy could be taking all of your stuff, right? I don't want them taking my stuff. But what they can do is they can take the distributions, right? The rent that comes out of these LLCs into the FLP. But if you're really smart and you've got a good lawyer, you can write your operating agreement in such a way that you don't have to take any distributions out of your LLC. I can just leave all the money in there. And so while you're sitting there trying to screw me, guess what? You're going to sit there for 10 years and not going to get a cent. Because I'm not going to take any money out of those LLCs. I'm just going to leave them. So good luck, right? Now we can negotiate. Because you maybe don't want $2 million. Maybe you only want 50 grand to go away. So you have a better day that I've got some leverage. Make sense? And if you're really, really smart, like coming to this conference smart, you can take out money from this that are not distributions. You can take out money from that are management fees or consulting fees, or there's other ways that you can get your money out and they can't touch it, right? It's all about how you have an operating agreement written up, if you're smart. If not, you go to LegalZoom, you pay $100, and then 20 years later you find out why it was 100. Do it on your own. Hopefully you're on a beach somewhere and enjoying it. So I know some of that went maybe over your heads, but do you understand the concept of why, right? If you don't have a good asset protection structure in place, everything you've worked for your whole life could disappear overnight. Pray to God it doesn't happen. You know, it doesn't happen to people every day, but when it happens, man, the impact is huge. And so I highly recommend that you guys review this stuff. And the beauty of it is that, you know, you can put a bank account up there, you can put your personal residence up, you can put whatever you want. Because guess what? Anything that you personally own, people can come after you, right? Because you own it. So you want to be careful. Good? Is that helpful? Interesting? All right. Let's keep going. Oh, one thing. Equity stripping. This is really fun. So let's say that you own your house cash, right? Makes you a target. Now, if you own a house and it's very cheap, probably not so much. But makes you a target. Now, when you have a loan, let's say that you have a loan and you owe 90% on the house, right? You put down 10%. People aren't going to go after you for 10% because there's not a lot of money in it. By the time they sell it, right? But let's say you own a house 100%. If you own it 100% in terms of outright, you become a target because you've got a $300,000 house, you've paid it off, you think, woohoo, you're a target now. So other than having this strategy in place, this is for the super dupers, what you do is something called equity stripping. You create an LLC in some other state, as an example, right? That LLC, you make up some name that sounds like a bank, ABC Financial Limited or something, I don't know. And then you take a lien over your own home using that entity. And then you record that lien, you know, so that it's searchable. So when the boiler room people look up the property, you might owe 95% to such and such a financial company in some other state. Dead in the water, they don't come after you, right? So there's so many ways you can do this stuff if you know. But if you don't know, the costs are huge. As I said to you, like at the start of this morning, this could be worth nothing to you, it could be worth millions. Literally millions, if you know. If you don't know, and that's why I said the best investment you can make is investment in yourself. Good? All right, let's keep going. All right, home stretch. Who wants to go through the last stuff about how I bought my house and how I did that stuff? You want to learn that stuff? All right. Just so you know, I said when it was 4, so you're on your own time now. Subject 2. This is how I bought my house. Subject 2 deal is basically where you take over someone else's home, but they keep the mortgage in their name. Okay? So what we did, our situation, the guy that we bought it from, he was military. He was getting moved to Louisiana. The house, and I'll show you the numbers in a minute because it'll make more sense. But basically, he was in a position where he was going to lose no matter what. This was a good option for him and for you. This is something that wholesalers do. Some of them, the good ones. The basic ones don't because they don't know. But wholesalers do this. Let me explain those last points afterwards. So this is the house. 4 bed, 3.5 bath, 2,800 square feet, blah, blah, blah. Purchased it for $282. The owner got $270, of which he owed like $260. So he made $10,000. The wholesaler made $12,000 on the transaction. The house is worth $320. Okay? So I bought a house for $282, so I'm happy, right? Because it's worth $320. The wholesaler made 12 grand, so he's happy. He wanted to make 20, but I negotiated him down. And the owner made 10 grand, right? Is that a good deal for everyone? Here's the reason it's a good deal. You might think, well, it wasn't a good deal for the owner. Let me explain to you why it was. The owner had no money, okay? No money at all, paycheck to paycheck. His house was not in a condition where he could have sold it for market value. Even if he had sold it for market value, at $320, what's it going to cost him to sell? $32,000, right? 10%. So $320 takes him down to like $290, what? $290, right? No? Work with me. $320,000, $32,000, beg your pardon. So he would have been at $288, yeah? So $288 is what he would have gotten out of it. And then on top of that, he had to fix some things in the house, which he didn't fix. I fixed some stuff, but he would have to fix it, right? So if you would have had to fix all those things, what would he have ended up with in his pocket? Any more than $270? No. So he had, but he couldn't have done it because he had no money to fix those things. So he couldn't have gotten market value. So he was stuck. So he was in a place where he got one of those letters because he was behind on his payments. And they just said, hey, if you'd like to sell your house, we'll buy him cash and so on. So one day I was with my wife. I don't work Fridays, so Friday's my family day. So I was with Naomi at breakfast, and we're having a coffee, and this thing comes up on my phone, like this deal. And I'm like, that looks pretty good. So we called the guy, we went and checked it out, we made an offer, and so we were in. Basically within an hour, we'd already bought the place. Still had to do some inspection, but we were done. This is a situation where basically the way it works is when you transfer title to a property, the mortgage can stay in the name of the person that owns it, but the title to the property passes to the new owner. So if you look up the house, it's under my name. The mortgage is still under his name. And you might think, well, why would somebody do that? That's crazy. Well, number one, what are his options? He was going to lose the house anyway. He was behind on his payments. He couldn't fix it. And he would have gotten less money if he had to try to fix it and sell it. So it was good for him. Obviously, if I'm a trustworthy person, it's good. Guess what else happens? I make his payments every month. His credit gets better, right? And so his credit improved. He got some money out of the deal as opposed to losing it. Like some people are in foreclosure. They're ready to lose their house. They're going to walk away with nothing. If I can put $5,000 in your pocket, do you think that's better than you foreclosing? Right? You can have that on your credit record for ages. So there are so many ways you can rescue people. Some people take advantage, okay? Like I said, don't be unscrupulous. But I'm saying there's situations when you can do a subject to deal that helps everyone. It helps the person pulling the deal together. It helps the person selling, and it helps the person buying. Everybody wins out of this transaction. I mean, his credit score is going to go through the roof because I pay my payments on time every month. I'm happy. I bought a house on the market. I'm happy, you know. And here's the difference. This is the numbers. I don't know if you can see this. We were paying, before we bought this house, we were paying $2,000 a month in rent. It was a nice place. I was happy. But that $2,000 a month is 120 grand over 5 years, right? Simple maths. And that's assuming the rent doesn't go up, which it does, okay? But my ownership or financial benefit is really nothing, right? At the end of that 5 years, I've paid my 120, I get nothing. Here's what I'm paying at the moment per month. I pay $1,455 per month. Of that, $6,144 is principal. That's not a real cost. Why is that not a real cost? It reduces my loan. I get it back when I sell, right? So my real cost of living in this house is my taxes and insurance, right? My true annual cost is $11,316. Obviously minus repairs, but you know, I don't trash my house because I live in it. So my savings per year is $12,000. That 11 versus that 24, I'm saving $12,000 a year just for living in the house. On top of that, so that's what I'm saying over 5 years. And then if I get some appreciation, now I'm saying appreciation is only inflation. Appreciation is typically, as Mike has told me in the Springs, it's like 6% per year over the last 100 years, right? 50 years, long period of time. So I'm probably going to be double that, but let's just say it's 3%. It's just inflation, right? Which we know we're going to get. So in the end, between what I paid for it, what I'm saving in rent, buying it on the market, I'm going to make about $136,000 on the deal in total, right? Is that a good day? All right. Have you guys heard of subject to deals before? No. So they're not available to you because you're not aware of them. Where do you find subject to deals? From wholesalers, from other people. Where do you meet wholesalers? So you can find these deals too, right? One example of one thing that if you don't know exists, it's not on your radar. Obviously, because of time, I can't share everything with you, but I'm telling you, there is so much out there, and if you bother to take the time, educate yourself, connect with the right people, man, it's just awesome. Good? All right, so this was my house. This is just an example. It's a live example with real numbers, okay? And you think, well, no one's going to do that. You know, probably since I bought this house, I've probably looked at a bunch of subject to deals. They're available all the time. It's all sorts of deals. I was going to show you some today. I don't have time. I'm sorry, it got away from me. So apologies for that. So we're going to wrap up and then we're going to do Q&A. Okay, so a couple of slides. Love Bruce Lee. Here's some things I've been thinking about. I don't know what this looks like, if we're going to do it, whether we're going to do it, or how. I've been thinking of putting together an investment fund. If you're interested, I'll talk to you guys and the people that send me that email, right, about wanting to be part of a group. Maybe you don't have money, maybe you got time, maybe other people have only a little bit of money they want to put together and make one together as a group. What do we invest in? I don't know. What does it look like? I don't know, okay? Don't know. Because I didn't come pre-prepared to do all this stuff, but I know there's a need. I know there's people that would like to do something, they need some guidance. I don't know. So thank you. If you want to just put that back up, I got nowhere over time. Thank you. If you're interested in doing that, then send me that email. Just put join us in the thing, and then we'll figure it out. And look, maybe nothing will come of it. I don't know. There's legalities around things. There's doing things the right way, but I want to help people. So that's on that side. Here's what I want from you. Right, Bruce Lee. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. I love that line. I read it somewhere. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. People always want the present self to thank them for something, right? I bought that townhome like 18 years ago. I'm thanking my 18-year-old self that I didn't keep that car, right? Now, it would have been more fun driving a nicer car at the time, right? Especially when you're 18. But man, like I can drive whatever car I want now. It's worth it. So make a commitment today. What can you do by tomorrow? Now, why do I say tomorrow? Because you know what? You put it off for a week, and life just gets in the way. So make a commitment. What is one thing you can do by tomorrow? Then what is one thing you can do by next week? Why do I do that? Because you've got to keep the momentum going. If you don't keep the momentum going, it'll just fall over, right? And there's something, if I tell you next week, oh, well, I can't do that tomorrow, I can only do that in a week, so then make that your 1 week thing. Okay, for some of you, it's going to be like, man, I want to investigate wholesaling. For some of you, it's going to be, I want to understand a bit more about fix and flips. Some of you, man, I've got to protect my assets. Whatever it is, right? You're going to have a different thing. But whatever it is, just focus on it. Get laser focused, learn it, and then you can move on to the next thing. Okay? And then next month, again, just keep it going. So, final thoughts. Hope you've enjoyed today. I didn't sleep much last night. I'm pumped, if you can see. I love this stuff, Here's the thing. Most people are going to be afraid because they're going out on their own. I like what Paul Milligan said. He said, do something, even if it's wrong, we can correct it on the fly. Right? You can't steer a ship that's not moving. Right? And this is my own. God blesses the work of our hands, not the thoughts of our minds. Okay? Most people are like, and it's like, you know what? Put your hand to work on something. And when you put your hand to work on something, God can bless it. And so whatever that is, just get going. A couple of next steps. So I've given you enough today to be able to go on. All right? You can start. You don't need me. Most seminars, it's all about what you need from me. I've given you the best of what I have. I've given you the best contacts. I've given you the best content. I've given you just stuff that you can do. All right? But one of the things I always get asked is, well, can you help me personally? Do you have a coaching program? Do you have this? Do you have that? And I always say no, because I love my wife and I want to keep her, like I said. But I also recognize that sometimes people get to a point where it's like, well, I want to get started, but I don't know how. And I want someone to hold my hand through the process and I want to learn. Here is my challenge. If I charge you $1 squillion, you're not going to be able to afford it. okay? If I charge nothing, I'm going to lose my wife, okay? And so I don't like doing this, and you might think this is just for show, but I'm telling you, I don't like doing this because of what it entails for me personally. I mean, you've seen how much effort has gone into today. So here's what I came up with, and this is no compulsion or obligation, but what I've decided to do, I'm going to create a coaching group for the next 12 months, maximum of 20 people, maximum of 20. If you're at number 21, not doing it. I need to have a minimum. I don't know what that minimum is because I'm not going to do it for one person. But I've made it as cheap as I can possibly make it. Okay, you can see what I'm offering. The same way as this seminar has been, I want it to be real and tangible. I don't want to just sell you another seminar. I don't want to give you a product. I want to help you do your first deal or do your next deal or help you grow your portfolio, right? So if we're going to do that, let's do it as a community. Okay, it's an incredible amount of investment of my time over the next 12 months. And so that's why I'm charging for it. You don't need this if you don't need this, okay? So hear me. The same way as, if you wanted to give today or not, man, walk away from this. If you want to do this on your own, go and do it. You have real stuff that you can do. Go to a meetup. Do those things. You don't need this. This will fast track you. It will. It'll save you money. It'll save you from when things go wrong. It'll give you a community and support group. There's benefits to it, right? That's the reason you pay for it. I know other people charge different amounts, whatever. I'm going to get into what people charge and why they charge it. But here's the things that I want to share with you why I thought doing it this way. So number one is this word, accountability. Coaching is important, but accountability, right? Keeping you moving. When you're in a group, you do that. Trip to Columbus. So everyone in that group will get to go to a trip to Columbus, and I'll take you for 2 full days, and we're going to walk a bunch of properties. We typically see 15 in a day. So you'll have been through 30 properties, and we'll talk you through every single thing. Why this neighborhood? Why not that neighborhood? What this house, that house, right? You'll learn more than you'll learn in years of doing it on your own in 2 days, right? People charge thousands just for that, right? But whatever. Monthly group meetings and home tours, and a meetup once a month. You're all local, so that's why I'm only doing it with this group. We'll go out and we'll look at houses together. We'll walk through and we'll look at deals. We'll get together, we'll look at, when I get a wholesale deal, I'll let you know. Let's go and walk it. Let's go and look at it. Let's look at the numbers. Right? And we'll do a phone call as well, once a month with people. And I'll give you on-demand support, obviously within reason, but typically I'll get back to you within 24 hours. So if you come up across an issue and you're like, I don't know what to do, there's a good chance that I know the answer or I know someone that'll know that answer. Okay? And then we'll do the group calls. So I agonized over this price. It was higher when I started, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know how much to put just because you put it too little and then, it doesn't work and then you put it too high and then people think, well, that's too much, I can't afford it. Like I said, it's not for everyone. Don't hear this as a boast because it's not. But I go in a weekend and I make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I made $23,000 in a weekend once. One weekend. So for me, this is not a lot of money relative to the amount of work I'm going to put in for the next 12 months, right? But I have to have something, right? It's got to make sense for me. So if this is something you want to be a part of, put that in the subject line, send me an email, and we can get together and discuss that. If it's something that's not for you, then all good. But today, like I said, I've tried to give you the best of everything that I've had so that you don't feel like when we get to this end slide that this is the hard sell, buy my thing or whatever. I've given you the same stuff that we've been talking about is what I use day to day, the people that I talk to, the connections I have. And the difference is having personalized, having someone that can hold your hands, having someone that can encourage you. That's the difference, right? But if you want to go out on your own, you can do it. Like I said, I've held nothing back from you. So hopefully you've enjoyed today. I know it's late. I did promise Q&A, so I'm still willing to do it, but the people that want to leave can leave. But we can take like a quick 3-minute break so people go restroom, and then I'll just do some Q&A for a bit for those of you that want to stay. If you feel like you need to leave, please feel free to leave. I won't be offended. All right, thank you guys for coming.